You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
It's Monday night. It's 7 p.m. Pacific. No need for a tricorder. Let's just jump right into Through the Lens of Time on Mission Log Live. Sitting in for John Champion, my name is Mike Richards.
And I'm Ashley Thomas, sitting in for Heather Ray Barker. Tonight, we are all in the same room, and it's not multidimensional unless you consider that we're all in different geographic locations. But anyway, we've got an interesting episode of Strange New Worlds to discuss, and we can't wait to hear what everyone else has to say. So please call in.
Please call in. You heard Ashley. Just click on the Zoom link that's in our chat or use the meeting and passcode that you see on screen, and that'll send you right to the Earl Green Room before joining us on air.
Before we get to your calls, let's say hello to everyone in the YouTube live chat. Who's with us today, Mike?
Well, we've got our first Paul sighting that I see, Jim McMahon, stalwart, and we have the Welsh guy chiming in on the chat, which he says he doesn't normally do because he's paying attention to us, and I'd rather pay attention to you all. Jim McMahon said the Prauls are probably recovering from STLV. We do have Paul Wright, though, Dubs in the chat. Who else do you see?
Let's see, I spot Dave Taylor, BC. Who else did I see? Julian is here. Welcome, Julian. Jim is here. Did you say Jim? Peter Archibald?
Did. Yep.
Awesome.
And
Brandon is here. Yeah.
Brandon. Hopefully Brandon will call in and tell us what we all missed tonight. BC, you got to see him at STLV as well as Dubs there as well. Fun time. More on that later as we talk about the Discord membership or access that you get through patreon.com.
Yeah. Looking forward to getting to talk with everybody tonight. So.
And don't forget, while you're here, click subscribe to Roddenberry Entertainment. Like this video. Tell us who you are in the chat. If you haven't already, we'd love to hear from y'all. And we want to make sure that you know about the next great Roddenberry show on YouTube. Speaking of that, this week on Roddenberry Podcasts, we've got a few updates to share. First of all, Mission Log is on a short hiatus, but you can check out the supplemental episode, STLV FOMO, where John and Norman drop in with a quick update for anyone feeling a little left out of this convention season. They highlight everything that's happening on the Mission Log Discord, and we'll talk more about that later. Use the command !Mission Log to find out more. Ashley, what's going on Genealogy? Most of you know that Ashley and Earl are the hosts of Genealogy, looking at Gene Roddenberry's pre-Star Trek work. What are you guys working on there?
Sure. So this week we take a deep dive into Madame Pharaoh. It is the second script that Gene wrote for the TV show Jefferson Drum. Someone new is ridden into town to hold court at the card tables and Big Ed's at Big Ed's and is getting plenty of fools parted with their money. She might get between Jefferson Drum and his heart. So this is a script from 1958, and it is surprisingly ahead of its time. You can use the command !Genealogy to find out more.
The Trek Files just wrapped season 13 with Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek.
He is not a real doctor.
Oh, I know. Including the season 13 finale, we had Jonathan Frakes looking back at Best of Both Worlds. Check back for a turn date soon, and you can look at all 13 seasons on podcast.roddenberry.com, !Trek Files to find out more.
Fantastic. We've also got a new episode from Does It Fly? Join hosts Hakeem Oluseyi and Tamara Krinsky as they put all your favorite pop culture concepts to the test and determine once and for all if they are possible in the real world. On the latest episode, Freaky Friday and the Science of Body Swap Movies.
Hey, not only movies, we also had Turnabout Intruder in TOS. That's all we're going to say about that.
You could also say Spock Amok in Strange New Worlds. So few body swap movies are as iconic as Freaky Friday, but could switching a consciousness into an entirely new body actually work?
All of those questions will be answered on Does It Fly? And more podcasts are available wherever you download your favorite shows. And you can see the whole lineup as well at podcasts.roddenberry.com. So this is a pretty light episode. Not a lot going on. Not a lot of plot. Not a lot of character arc relationship things going on. So we're going to go to Ashley, who had the monumental task of writing the recap for this through the lens of time. Ashley Thomas.
All right, let's see how we do. Ensign Gamble has enjoyed his time on the Enterprise, and it's almost up. He and Dr. Mbenga are excited that Nurse Chapel and Dr. Korby are leading an expedition that could change how we view molecular memory and corporeal transference, aka eternal life. Meanwhile, Dr. Korby is having pre-expedition jitters. Nurse Chapel tries to ease his mind, reassuring him that he's the one in charge, not Starfleet. This will be a wonderful cooperative experience, but if it'll make him feel better, she could always hypo-spray Captain Pike and gives him a reassuring kiss. Roger steps onto the turbo lift as La'an steps off. Chapel nervously asks how Spock is and if he's asked about Roger. La'an says this is exactly why she doesn't do this stuff. She and Spock are keeping it casual, and Chapel reassures her that no, she's not one of those girls. She's not trying to make it weird. La'an says that if she's really worried about how Spock will be around Korby, just ask. They're all adults, right? Back in sickbay, Battelle has just finished her treatment and scans by Ensign Gamble, and she's nothing short of, well, top-notch science. She thanks Dr. Mbenga and Gamble and makes her way out of sickbay. Mbenga asks if Gamble has completed his duties in sickbay, and he confirms. Good, now he won't be late for the mission briefing. He's joining the away team with Nurse Chapel and Dr. Korby to Vadia 9. He's so excited that he tackle hugs Mbenga before apologizing and regaining his composure and dashes out to get to the briefing. On the turbo lift, Spock and Chapel share an awkward ride to the mission briefing. Chapel tries to break the ice, pointing out the awkwardness of staying quiet when they need to talk, and then points out that she's glad to see he and La'an are spending time together. Spock comments that she's an excellent dance instructor. Yeah, that too. Anyway, Roger's feeling a bit nervous about the dig, and he and Spock are like friends now, but that's only a relative term, according to Spock. Chapel wants things to go smoothly, but Spock is concerned that she doesn't trust him. Don't worry, he's implemented safeguards to make sure things do go smoothly. Just then, Ensign Gamble steps onto the turbo lift and excitedly greets his crewmates, and then realizes he just interrupted something. Whoops. In the briefing room, Chapel is enlightening the away team about the Macroon, the people of Vadia 9. They've refused entrance to the Federation for years. Consequently, they're only allowing a small letting party. Spock says he'll be supervising from the Enterprise. Pike asks Chapel if she's got any last thoughts or words about the mission when he's asked to give another take by Beto Ortegas. Pike is slightly annoyed, but Pelia says she's more than comfortable around a camera and asks Ensign Gamble to read the first paragraph of the mission brief. Umberto has been authorized to film this and the rest of the Enterprise's current roster of missions by Starfleet for his documentary. Pike is annoyed, but he'll allow it. Let's go dig up the past. On Vadia 9, Korby and their new Macroon friend Ninjal are setting up for the dig. As they are setting up, Beto is explaining his camera to Uhura. It employs an AI that detects nonverbal cues and zeroes in on them, catching all the subtext of his subjects. Well, that's not at all unnerving. He knows that's probably why the camera is focused on them right now. She and Beto share a flirtatious giggle when Chapel calls to Uhura to ask if she's ready. She is, and Chapel signals the Enterprise. Enterprise fires a deflector beam at the pylons, and lo, a building is revealed. Chapel, paraphrasing the great philosopher Chief Martin Brody, says, "Captain, we're going to need a bigger landing party." The Macroons, however, are not cool with that idea and only permit 2 other crew members from the Enterprise to join them, Spock and La'an. Uhura briefs them on the access panel she found on the building. There's an inscription in an unknown language. Chapel remarks that it looks vaguely Macroonian. Roger brings out a ring that he believes to be of royal origin that he discovered on Polaris 12. There are similar symbol sets on Praetorian where they found tablets with similar symbols that Chapel matched to ancient texts here on Vadia 9, leading them to believe the Macroon perhaps are descendants of a race of ancient astronauts who claim to have achieved immortality. Spock claims that many cultures share this fantasy, but Korby and Chapel think these people have achieved this through quantum instability at a molecular level. Meanwhile, Uhura has done some language cross-referencing, and she thinks she may have a rough translation for the panel. The path to absolution only with blood given freely. Korby is about to do some powerful and dramatic blood magic and takes out his knife to slice his own hand. Chapel tells him to slow his roll and instead places a finger under the access panel. The panel pricks her finger, does a full body scan, and now everyone can enter the mysterious place. Ta-da! They have a look around, and La'an notices comms are down. They'll have to step outside to get anything through. Worse, they can't transport from inside either. Not good. Gamble notices an oversized bag in the chamber, but wait, that's not a bag, that's a corpse. Ew. Scans indicate they've been here for centuries and probably died of starvation. We've now reached threat level midnight, and Spock suggests that Starfleet protocol, they must exit, report to the captain, and reevaluate their next steps. Korby is the one telling Spock to slow his roll now. They're not in any danger from the corpses. Chapel prescribes everyone a chill pill and says that this is an important mission not just for science but for the Macroons. They ask N'Jal's thoughts on the matter, and N'Jal says that for his people they should stay. Spock relents and they continue. Chapel uncovers a memory stone from one of the corpses just like they found on Praetorian. Meanwhile, Gamble takes a closer look at one of the artifacts in the bag, an orb, and gets a little too close. The orb explodes and a horrified Gamble uncovers his eyes, revealing that he's not got him anymore. Gamble is beamed directly back into sickbay, where Dr. M'Benga gives him a hypo spray and puts his eyes under a visor in hopes of growing him a new set of peepers. La'an and Chapel send fragments of the orb to Pelia as Captain Pike orders everyone to beam back aboard immediately. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is examining what appears to be a register. It's got names, including ones that were on the artifacts they found with the dead folks. Chapel says that's great, but they gotta go. Korby informs her that he and N'Jal are staying behind. Beto interrupts him to tell them to look at what his camera uncovered in the next room. N'Jal takes one look and says, Mika, Ta, Vesda, Pa, which is Macroon for evil. He takes off for the door and gets disintegrated by a laser at the doorway, which, by the way, is now completely locked. In sickbay, M'Benga is catching up a newly awakened Ensign Gamble. He's lost his eyes, but the visor should be regenerating him, but it's only keeping his sockets from deterioration. He can't figure out why it's not working. Pike steps in to check on Gamble. Gamble says that he's stable and scared, but he's happy to be alive. Pike and M'Benga step into the other room. M'Benga tells Pike that he's moved his initial assessment from flash burn to an agent, possibly a biological weapon, but something is preventing his eyes from growing back. Pike asks M'Benga how he's feeling about all of this. He's fond of the boy and blames himself for what happened. Pike reassures him that he's doing his best to give him the help that he needs. Back on Vadia 9, the landing party is trying to find their way out. They've deduced that the door didn't trigger when Chapel and La'an took Gamble out or when they came back, but it did when N'Jal tried to pass through alone. Perhaps Chapel is the literal key to getting them out there. They press forward into the next chamber, but this time in the same order in which they came through. Chapel and La'an, Uhura and Beto, and then Spock and Korby are the caboose. They've entered 2 by 2, but each pair finds themselves alone in another room. La'an and Chapel are together to check to see if comms work in this room. They do, and they reach out to Spock, who's with Korby. Uhura and Beto are in the group chat, too. They're together, but alone. They take 10 to assess the rooms and find themselves in and report back. Back in sickbay, M'Benga's scans are inconclusive. Gamble's got craters for eyes, and he's awakened enough to ask Joseph for an update. M'Benga gives Gamble a once-over with his tricorder. That's not right. He goes to check something while Gamble starts to look a bit sus. What's wrong? M'Benga insists that he needs more tests, but Gamble detects something else is afoot. Out with it. There's no sugarcoating it. Gamble is brain dead. But how is he awake and alert, let alone talking? Gamble starts to panic, and M'Benga gives him a sedative. Reassures him as he falls back asleep that he'll get it figured out. On Vadia 9, La'an and Chapel are trying to figure out why Chinese is printed on the base of the statue in their room. It reads in Federation Standard, here stands the beholder, century of eternal bridges. What's more, this statue has a life sign reading. With that, La'an draws her phaser. But the statue doesn't look alive. Further, Chapel confirms that the statue is alive and also not really there. Well, that's not confusing at all. Chapel explains that this is because the particles of the beholder are in constant flux here and not here, which is quantum instability on a molecular level, just like their research suggested. Spock and Korby are trying to figure out where they're at. Korby presses Spock about whether or not he believes in immortality. Why does he balk at it? Spock doesn't balk, he just believes Korby has neglected to take the proper precautions. Speaking of which, Corby's just picked up the tablet and has noticed something new. A word above the names meaning parasite or hitchhikers, another meaning well or pit. Oh yeah, and here's Vesdo, that means evil. But in this case, it's plural. Spock takes another look at the platform in the middle of their room, this time through a visor, and lo, he spots something. Thousands of somethings. They're all orbs like what Gamble picked up. Spock zooms in, and the creature shrieks at him from within. He steps back in confusion. Back aboard Enterprise, Pike, Ortega, Sam Kirk, Pelia, and Scotty are trying to figure out how to rescue their landing party. The Macroon have gone radio silent, and they can't send down another landing party without special permission. Pike will reach out to the ambassador, but they need a contingency plan. Scotty and Pelia go over the fragments of the orb that blinded Gamble. Best they can figure is that it's a containment unit and whatever was inside forced its way out. Sam asks if it could possibly be sentient, but Pelia is not sure. What she is sure of is that it's older than anything she's encountered. Further, it gives her, to use the technical term, the heebie-jeebies. Pike calls for security to meet him in sickbay. Back in sickbay, Mbenga is still working out what's wrong with Gamble when Gamble mentions Rukia, whom Mbenga has definitely not told him about. Gamble is surprisingly calm and lucid, and saying a lot of really disturbing things. Suddenly, Gamble is back to himself, and he's scared trying to figure out who was talking with his voice, because it definitely wasn't him. Battelle enters sickbay complaining of a reaction of her treatment. Feels like a migraine, and then she gets a look at Gamble, and Gamble senses her too, or whatever it is possessing Gamble does. The entity calls Battelle, Kali Kachna, and Battelle, in a voice unlike her own, growls the same words that Njal uttered in the chamber. Mika, ta, Vesda, pa! Battelle slams Mbenga into the wall, and not quite Gamble and not quite Battelle have a cage match, punching and smacking each other with whatever's at hand. Battelle and Gamble on Battelle puts Gamble on the ground, and about that time, Pike enters the scene with a security team. Marie! Pike calls out, and that's enough for not quite Gamble to get away and not quite Battelle to growl and snarl at Pike like he's prey. Mbenga has gotten up and slips Marie a sedative from behind. She's down for the count. Mbenga dashes down the hall to catch Gamble and finds him under phaser point with one of the security officers while he holds the other in a headlock, that officer's phaser trained at his temple. Another crewman, a science officer, lies dead at Gamble's feet. He seems to be himself again, not sure why he killed the officer or why everyone's trying to hurt him. Mbenga reassures him they're not trying to hurt him, but help. He promises to go quietly if Mbenga will fix him, and so he relents, but the question is, brig or sickbay? On Vadia 9, Uhura and Beto are still analyzing their room, trying to figure out what's going on. Beto's having a moment, he starts to panic. Uhura reassures him that everything's fine, they should both just take a deep breath, and so they do. Uhura takes a look at Beto's camera tablet and notices something odd. The camera feed shows them all in the same room. The one they're in right now, together. Uhura radios in and they got updates. Chapel and La'an do too, and she fills them in on their discoveries about the statue. Spock brings the team up to date about the sentient beings he found too, and as he does, he notices a green cut on his hand. How'd that get there? But as amazing as all that is, they're all still together. Seems impossible, right? Not if they're in a multidimensional room. They're on different planes of existence in the same room. Perhaps phase shifting through different realities to achieve immortality had an unwanted effect. They brought something through with them. Hitchhikers. La'an hypothesizes that maybe this place isn't a palace or a lab. What if it's a prison? On Enterprise, Gamble has been placed in the brig for his own and everybody else's safety. He asks what's going to happen. Mbenga says he wishes he could say. Back on Vadia 9, Uhura has deciphered another inscription in the room. It reads, here and not here. Chapel hypothesizes that perhaps if they place all the artifacts on the pedestal, it might trigger a reaction, bringing them all back together. She instructs Korby to place the tablet and Uhura to place the ring. Each of these items appears on Chapel's side of the dimension. She places the ring on the tablet and gets the band back together, and seems to magically heal Spock's cut, or was it there to begin with? How they get to the door? There was a bridge there before, and now it's gone. Back in Pike's quarters, Battelle wakes up from her enforced nap. Pike's seated next to her, hypospray in hand, just in case she's not quite feeling like herself again. She's not sure what happened and asks about Gamble. She knows he wasn't himself, quite literally, and neither was she. She confesses that she had an overwhelming desire to kill him and can't explain why. Pike says they have to consider it might have been her inner Gorn coming out, and not the usual way Gorns come out. Battelle says that she can't explain the feeling that she had, and it was old. Just then, Pike is informed that the Macroon ambassador is on the line. They gotta have a little talk. On Vadia 9, our away team is trying to figure out how to get back to the door with no bridge. Spock is examining the statue again and slices his hand, just like the cut he had in the previous dimension. Of course, in reconstituted dimensional space, inverted causality coexists, meaning that the effect can happen before the cause. Paradoxical, theoretical, and also completely scientific, which means they must walk across the empty space and turn on the bridge. A leap of faith, if you will, Dr. Jones, Nurse Chapel. From his cell on the bridge, not quite Gamble calls out to his guard, telling him in his mother's voice that she's in pain and he let her die alone. And with that, he reaches through the force field and chokes him, snapping his neck. Gamble grabs the phaser and exits his cell. From the chambers, Spock says it's either take a long walk off a short pier or stay here and starve. The science is theoretical but sound. They've got to try, everyone together, and Chapel's the key. She gave the blood sacrifice to get in, so it makes sense that she should take the first step. But Korby won't hear of it. Theoretical doesn't mean she can walk on air, but Spock argues that this is a matter of science. He reminds her that trust is a two-way street. He may not have her confidence on many things, but he needs it on this. Korby objects, but Chapel reminds him that he's never been afraid of taking a chance, and this is one they've got to take. After all, nothing in life is guaranteed, and that's what makes it worth living. Korby reluctantly agrees and turns back to take the relic. Chapel tells him to leave it where it is, and it's the only thing keeping them all together. Chapel takes a deep breath and La'an's hand, and they both step out together in a leap of faith. The bridge appears, and they all cross as the door opens. Korby looks back on the dig site with some regret, but Chapel reminds him that, hey, they're all alive, so he should take the win. In engineering, Gamble has Sam, Pelia, and Scotty at phaser point, demanding the command codes for Enterprise. But Mbenga's caught up with him and has his phaser trained on him. He tells Gamble to fight it, but Sam isn't sure he's really in there. Mbenga offers himself in the boy's stead, but as he does, Gamble raises his phaser and smiles, ready to shoot Mbenga, but not before Pelia gets there first. Gamble hits the ground, and whatever was possessing him leaves his body. Scotty catches it in another containment unit and locks it in the transporter buffer, the closest thing they have to a multidimensional prison. In the briefing room, La'an confirms that this is the safest place to store the Vesda for now. Pike confirms that Starfleet and the Macroon are working together to establish a safety perimeter around the site, and now it seems the Macroon are seeing the benefits of the Federation. La'an is disturbed to think of what could have happened had Gamble taken over the ship. He could have used the phaser banks to release the rest of them. Mbenga finishes her sentence. An army of cosmic beings like that set loose on the galaxy. Pelia offers her condolences to Mbenga, noting his fondness for Gamble, but the boy he knew was gone. Beto asks if those things were evil, and while Pike isn't willing to call anything truly good or evil, Pelia disagrees. She says there is evil in this universe as sure as there's good, as sure as there is matter, as sure as there's light. I know that being was ancient, malevolent, the desire to malign and pervert and consume, given corporeal form. If any of those things ever escape that well down there, God help us all. Hey, you want one for the camera? She asked Beto. Nah, he's good. In sickbay, Mbenga is studying the pattern buffer of the Vesda lifeform when he gets a call from Earth. It's Gamble's parents, and he asks to be the one to speak with them about the loss of their son. As he walks away from the panel with the pattern buffer information, the panel flashes and distorts in a way that can only be described as malevolent. The end.
Thank you, Ashley, for that amazing recap. This was such a plot-heavy, character-heavy episode, and you covered all the bases for us. And thank you for that. You had just a couple of quick observations. You had not quite Gamble and not quite Patel. I had Vez Damble and Gortel in my notes.
I like it. I like it.
A throwback to Mission Log's coverage of the original series. Life prolongation never does go well, does it? Always unintended consequences there. And it took me a little while to realize that the name of the planet was Praetorian, not the people. I thought the people were Praetorian, but the planet was Praetorian. So would that make the people who live there Praetorianians, Praetorianites?
Your guess is as good as mine, friend.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And then we've got Umberto putting the moves on Uhura, standing really close at some points, almost like they were going in for that, tight 2 on a 4x3 screen. I think that's how Beto was playing things. Nice Jaws shout out, 50th anniversary of Jaws. We're going to need a bigger landing party. Sadly, the studio vetoed a bigger landing party because they didn't want to pay any more extras. Isn't that the story they got?
Yep.
And did anybody check to see if that needle was shared before Nurse Chapel just walked up to it?
Gamble was going in there. He's like, "How you feeling? Are you okay? Let me scan you for infection." She's like, "Bro, chill."
Before we get to our first caller, I just wanted to mention that I had a blast in Las Vegas last week because of the folks in our Discord who are Mission Log patrons. And I had a chance to get out there. And if anybody had a chance to stop by the Factory Entertainment booth, we're sure you saw the amazing products. The great news is that even if you weren't there, it's not too late to get in on the action. Factory Entertainment has offered you a 10% off the first order with the code MissionLog. You can also see that code by typing Factory Ent in the live chat. ! Factory Ent. And Ashley, I just pulled a Shatner on you. I just stole your line. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I did enough talking with the recap.
All
Gosh.
right, enough of me, enough of you. Let's go to our first caller in. Let's go with Jim. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great.
Hi, Jim.
Uh, Hello,
What's on your
everyone.
mind, sir?
I hate to start this off on a sour note, but I thought this was probably the weakest episode of the season so far.
Well, I would love to hear why.
I thought this would be when I heard this was gonna be an episode with like Korby and Beto, whatever his name is in the
Umberto.
episode. Like I thought this would be like a great episode to be like found footage, the two of them working together, like maybe explain how Korby wound up going missing, kind of a thing. I thought that would be a great way to explain that, but instead it just wound up being like getting lost inside a spooky, mysterious temple, which has always been one of my least favorite types of storytelling. Like, ah, like
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, one of the things that I could describe Strange New Worlds as doing is as being, I think, highly derivative of original series canon, while at the same time maybe not treating it with the respect that it deserves. That's just my opinion.
yeah, like I
So
think
what?
they do a great job coming up with explanations. They just don't always do it in a good way.
Yeah. So when I saw this one, I kind of thought, okay, this is going to be them sort of, retconning everything that happened in What Pretty Girls Are Made Of. But I wasn't so much, I didn't see a lot of that. It was good to see them beam down to an actual location, which looked an awful
Yes.
lot like Talos 4 in Discovery, just with maybe like a gray filter instead of a blue filter and less singing plants. But I was like, great, they're on location. Then I'm like, we're back to the AR wall as soon as they went
Yeah.
inside, which is just
Like
like, I
they were
mean,
probably on location for a day, maybe.
yeah. The aesthetic of the original series, which is always kind of like, a funkily lit sky with some scrub, maybe some tubes, maybe some silos and that kind of thing. I think we'll look back at this and see that consistent visual of the AR wall, kind of darkly lit background, circular sort of room. So, yeah, I think I've kind of it's an amazing piece of technology. I kind of feel like I've seen enough of it and was hoping they'd be out on location a little bit more. Um, yeah, lots of holes in this one. Lots of unnecessary risks taken that I think we'll get to. Was that part of your dissatisfaction with this
Kinda,
episode?
yeah. Kinda, yeah. It's like they took risks, but it didn't pay off. It kind of didn't pay off in the way that I think they were hoping for.
Yeah, Ashley, any thoughts on what Jim's saying so far?
Uh, I think my takeaway from this episode and really this season thus far is all the episodes for me have been fine. Like I haven't disliked any of them,
Oh yeah,
but
same for me so far
yeah,
this season for the most part.
but I don't think this is the weakest episode. I don't. I think maybe Wedding Bell Blues or Hegemony Part 2 was maybe. Uh, this I think was definitely fun. And we went to a strange new world on Strange New Worlds. How about that? We keep going to places we've been before. Now we went somewhere new. That's very exciting to me.
I will grant them that they did actually go someplace different for a change.
Hmm. Yeah.
So for me, I actually found that this was one of the probably the most tolerable episode of Strange New Worlds that I've seen in quite some time. And I think it was because that they actually went to a Strange New World, even though they did touch on some previously trod upon ground with the original series episode that it was sort of a prequel to.
Yeah, I did
However,
actually like where they did kind of tie in the Gorn. I did appreciate that.
Mm.
yeah, and apparently the Gorn and the Vedra are sort of ancient enemies, I guess, mortal enemies. Because
Maybe so. Maybe so. At least, if nothing else, not quite Battelle had a pretty
yeah,
bad reaction to not quite Gamble.
yeah, Gorntel had one of those things living rent free in her head. So
Oh, yeah.
there's something there.
Yeah, that was like one of my few favorite parts of the episode. That fight between Gorn
Mm.
and I forget his name,
Gamble.
Gamble. Yeah.
They didn't actually say his name, I don't think, until this episode. I had been calling him Ensign Handsome Locks.
Oh yeah, and that was the other thing I failed to mention at the beginning. Like I predicted, like when the episode began with his junior medical log, like I just knew instantly. oh, poor junior medical ensign. We're not going to see him anymore. Like I knew instantly he wasn't going to be on the series anymore, just based on that log entry.
Yeah, that was a shame. Jim, thanks for calling in, man. Any final thoughts before we move
No,
on to the next
I
caller?
covered everything I wanted to talk about.
It's just one of those things. I think every episode of Star Trek is somebody's favorite and somebody's least favorite, and every episode of Strange New Worlds is somebody's favorite and somebody's
And
least
that's the
favorite.
beauty of Star Trek.
Yep, and there was a lot here to chew on. I think as far as for me, you guys know my day job. I'm an airline pilot, so I look at things as far as identifying risks, managing those risks, do what you can to mitigate them, and then proceed accordingly. Which this crew did none of, essentially. But we'll talk more about that later. Jim, thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks for
A
calling,
blast
Jim.
as always. Great seeing you, Mike.
Yep.
You too, sir.
Yeah. Earl says the Gorn, they're not just gonna go away.
Brandon, how you doing, man?
Hi, Brandon.
Hello. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Man, never better.
That's excellent. Have you noticed that none of the away mission red shirts in Strange New Worlds have ever worn a red shirt?
So it's interesting because they've kind of mixed up the uniforms so much to begin with. So you have Ortegas and Mitchell, working helm and navigation in red shirts, which is interesting. And the gold shirts are really kind of just for like who? Pike and number one? Are those the only ones? I mean, other than like Kirk's
might be like a couple other people we see.
constant squatting. But yeah, so it's definitely a little bit different. So yeah, maybe that's the bait and switch. Maybe they're like, it's not a red shirt. It's this guy will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, but the first red shirts I can think of were in All Who Wander, and they, the opening scene, they're like, "Congratulations on all this!" They're like, "We're so happy," and it's like, "Oh, I don't even know what the episode's about, and you are gonna die." And that's what I had this episode when he was like super cheerful. I was like, "Oh, I like him. Don't kill him."
So at the beginning of this episode is this lighthearted banter with M'Benga, and it's the whimsical music as he's kind of strutting around the Enterprise. I was like, this is gonna be another fun episode. Yeah.
Nope.
No.
But I will say, so it was really interesting to hear Jim saying that he thought that this was the weakest. I thought that it was the strongest with a butt.
Go. I like big butts.
And
he
don't
cannot lie either. Yeah. Let's go.
So it was the first one this season that felt like it was a Star Trek episode that didn't feel like it was being like, remember? Now, this could also be because the things that other people are seeing that it has in common with episodes of TOS. I did not see that episode of TOS. So it's possible that it really was like another love letter or another homage or strong borrowing of. I liked that part. It was very frustrating that so much of the episode only happened because lots of people had to make lots of very bad decisions. Let the needle poke you. Just do it. It's fine. Comms are blocked. Damn the comms. Full speed ahead. Don't let a couple exploded eyeballs make you any more careful or even go outside for a minute, except to let that guy go back to the ship. And so it feels like the message kind of just ended up being like, hey, think about what you're going to do before you do it, okay? And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a good message. I think it harkens back to the early days of Mission Log where sometimes the message was don't eat paint, like, okay, sure. That's fair. Or maybe it's if somebody offers you eternal life, turn around. If someone is looking for something that talks about eternal life, don't go with them.
So, and I think about when you were talking about the early days of Mission Log, you heard and we all know the risk is our business speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that risk should be taken. Our
Right.
our business isn't taking risks. It's our business is identifying those risks, doing what we can to mitigate the severity of any possible outcome, and then deciding if the risk is warranted before we move forward. And when I say unwarranted, that's kind of my segue into the motion picture, where that crew had to engage with V'ger. Decker's position was that it was an unwarranted risk. Kirk's position was that it was warranted, and they did what they could to mitigate those risks. That's the business. This was just, okay, we got lucky with Chapel's finger. The door opened. We get in. We see dead people. There's a threat. There's a risk. This changed. The policy in place was when the danger level increases, you withdraw and reassess. That was ignored because there wasn't any immediate danger. Now moving forward, sort of one chance after another worked out, so they kept moving forward and never reassessed. I'd like to talk more about that later, but yeah, that is a good, meaning is, risk does not have a memory. Every individual risk you take is a roll of the dice, and you've got to do what you can to mitigate that.
Absolutely. I think
Now,
that. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say you were very active in the mission log Discord with your thoughts this week, and I would have loved to share
Yes.
some of those. And then I was like, you know what? Our Discord is our private safe space that does not go on beyond here. If you want to talk about any of the comments you made, that's great. But
Yeah.
it crossed my mind to, change the names to protect the innocent. But you were active on this, and I loved reading. I read all of
Oh,
the Strange New World spoilers today to prep for this.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'll talk to some of that just real quick because I don't want to take up too much time. But I think one of the things I am the best way to describe how I'm feeling about season 3 so far is alarmed, because it feels to me I have been on Mission Log Live and made no secret when I did not like some of the other shows we have had recently, and I've loved some of them, and I feel like a lot of what I really loved and recommended Strange New Worlds to people because of have sort of gone away in this season, because it used to be I was like, it's episodic, you can watch really any order and it's totally fine, you get a little bonus for watching them in order, but and this is like, no, hey, look, please watch Hegemony, and then if you could really just watch Shuttle to Conforey, so you know what's going on with Batel, and then just, what, if you were watching Wedding Bell Blues, so you knew about Korby, that's really important. You're going to need to know why Spock and Korby don't like each other. And I know that you really want to know some answers about what happened with Not Batel and Not Gamble. So I'm going to need you to tune in next week or the week after, because this show is serialized now and we just sort of snuck it up on you, and
Yeah.
haha. And that's just kind of a bummer, and to have so much of the plot be because somebody ate their dummy-os in the morning instead of a smarter breakfast cereal. We can do better than this, guys. We have this point in the season, in season 2, we had ad astra per aspera. Even by the end of season 2, I mean, almost every episode I was watching just saying, man, I forgot how good that was. I really like this. This makes me feel like watching older Star Trek makes me feel like there was a good message and there was something really cool here. Not like I'm going to watch the next episode because I have to in order to understand the one after it or to understand what happened here, but because it's going to be totally new. The world will be new and it will be strange. And, we're going to address this all as competent adults using our competent adult skills. And sometimes that's going to be too much for us still, because sometimes it is possible to make no mistakes and still lose. And you don't need to be a dummy to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Or to lose. I blew it.
Oh no, I always appreciate your insight. While we have you here on the subject of Patreon, Ashley, it's probably that time that we do the grossly commercial part of our show and talk a little bit about Patreon.
It is that time. So, folks, let us take a moment to talk about one of our favorite corners of the internet, the Mission Log Discord.
Some of us were lucky enough to attend the Patreon party in Las Vegas, put on by a team of Mission Log patrons. Cannot thank the folks there enough. I don't want to name names because I'll leave somebody out. And there were so many people involved with this. It was wonderful to see you all. If you want to join the fun, patreon.com/missionlog or type !Patreon into the chat to learn more.
And we did something different this year too, Mike. I want to give a quick shout out to my sister from another mom and Mr. Charlene Schmidt. She set up some video. Dr. Nani loaned her a really cool camera. And we got, if you were not able to be at the Mission Log party in person, we got a live stream from there. We got to participate virtually, which is what I got to do. I was really happy to get to be a part. It did lessen my FOMO just a little bit. But folks, that is your key to our private Discord server. And to keep this whole podcasting thing going, we hope to see you there. Again, that address is patreon.com/missionlog or type !Patreon in the chat to learn more.
And also shout out to Norman Seelau, co-host normally here and co-host of Mission Log. He set up live chats every day of the convention for those people that couldn't be there for whatever reason, to be able to connect with us. Brandon, thanks so much for calling in, my man. We are going to move on, and I cannot thank you again for calling in. Mark, how are things in the Great White North, sir?
Oh, they're not too bad. A little warm. But I've decided that we need to up the protection of what we take down on the away parties. So I've got a Type 3 phaser rifle for each of you.
Well,
thank you.
The
for
phaser
that.
rifle may have helped, but what probably would have made a bigger difference would probably be just being a little bit more risk averse, maybe a little bit more resource savvy, maybe complying with the policies set in place ahead of time.
OSH policies,
but you know what?
maybe.
A laser rifle doesn't hurt.
Or OSH policies too would have helped probably a little bit. Occupational health and safety. I don't know. That seems to be lacking so far in what we've seen on Strange New Worlds at the time.
Yeah, so I saw you active in the Strange New Worlds spoilers thread also. Can you sum up your thoughts on this episode?
Well, for me, I'm wondering, previously we've seen in both Enterprise and later on in is it Errand of Mercy? In TOS, we saw the Organians who were non-corporeal beings who wanted to study humans and then eventually help to do peace with their great power. I can't help but wonder if these are either the race that was opposite to the Organians, where the Organians chose to go for peace, mediation, and working to bring peace together. These aliens decided to go at war, and so they got locked away because they were so crazy or unstable that their non-corporealism was a danger compared to, say, what the Organians do. And I wonder, could we go? And for the Gorn activating, it could be a simple thing as where at a certain level your predator prey instinct kicks in, especially at the reptile level, and they could see it as a danger, so they take it over, and so they enter a thing of when certain heightened senses they have that other humans may not have. And they could also, we don't actually know how long the Gorn have existed as a species in Star Trek, because outside of 2 appearances in the original canon of Star Trek, 2 or 3, we haven't really seen them. So it's this is Strange New Worlds is a really interesting way to be able to explore that canon of Trek and establish existing canon and establish new stuff, which I kind of think you could do with Proto Patel of whatever she's becoming for part human, part Gorn, the brood mother, like in Aliens, Ripley from one of the Aliens movies that has alien DNA in them, however you want to say. I think it's interesting how they have the chance to weave together aspects that we don't know for non-corporeal and even the Gorn.
Ashley, any thoughts on what the what that relationship or what we might see going down the road between the Gorn and the Vesda? Because obviously there's something there, right?
I mean, to quote the great philosopher Taylor Swift, there is bad blood. I don't know that they even used to be mad love. But yeah, Mark, I have often wondered this season if Battelle is going to be, as Ripley was in Alien Resurrection, the monster's mother, is the line that you were looking for there. So,
And for
uh,
those of you that haven't seen Alien Resurrection, we apologize for the spoiler on a 35-year-old movie.
well, I mean, I thought you were about to apologize for Alien Resurrection, and you should not do that. I would watch that a billion times before I ever watched Alien 3 again, and that's my hot take for tonight. Um, anyway, let's talk about Strange New Worlds now. Alien's my favorite movie. I've got opinions. So,
Sounds good. Mark,
yeah.
Mark, anything else you want to share with us before we move on to our next caller?
No, well, there's one thing just from the heightened senses that Battelle has, the Gorn, um, because we much like humans who are neurodiverse, how they have greater sensory issues, they might be able to see it of where they might be able to pick certain things up because they can see and understand things at different levels. Like for me, I've often said sound bothers me at 40 decibels. For neurotypical people, it's 70, and so they could have been when they take over a person, they could be emitting certain things that Goran senses because they're that more astute, are able to pick up, and as a result, they can then use that to leverage the danger that they face, the potential danger they face, and I think that's a really interesting thing if they explored that more. If we see next week or the week after another alien species that could be as deadly or is peaceful and so there's no reaction. I think that'd be interesting to explore because it's an area that Star Trek and sensory issues and heightened senses hasn't explored too much yet.
Well, we'll hopefully look forward to that on a future show, or maybe we'll see what they have in mind. But Mark, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate your support. You are here week in and week out, and we appreciate you, man.
Thanks for calling, Mark.
We are going to
Thank
move
you.
on to the sniffer of quasars, if I remember your handle correctly. John
Yeah.
Arminio, smartest guy in the room.
Oh my God.
Hi, John.
Guy, I appreciate that. Now I have something to not live up to. I know it seems like every episode of Strange New Worlds introduces us to a new reference to something already done in Star Trek. But for me, uh, I got a kick out of this episode because the away team mission felt like a combination of Forbidden Planet and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
It was definitely
Mhm.
Indiana Jones and the Final Frontier, I think,
Yeah,
is what I dubbed it.
Yeah.
but as much as I love those movies, I think especially with the quest for immortality, right? That definitely ties directly into Last Crusade. The people who are looking to obtain immortality in Last Crusade are the Nazis. Um, so when they make stupid decisions, it's because they're power hungry, greedy, short-sighted world conquerors. And now our Starfleet away team is making those same kind of moronic decisions. Like,
It's true, and John, there is a video that I watched. This was part of my recurrent training a few years ago, and I just found it to be brilliant. It was a video by an astronaut about how to manage risk,
mhm,
and essentially it was, that was the thing. If you get away with standing on the top step of a ladder, right, that doesn't make it any less risky the next time you do it,
yeah,
right? If you ignore policy, if you ignore the procedures, if you don't keep an eye out on each other and be each other's, sort of, eyes and ears when they're busy doing something else, then that risk isn't diminished just because you got away with it, right? You have to follow those protocols. You have to follow those policies.
yeah,
Like when Spock said, we have to reassess this, let the captain know and do this. That was the answer. Doesn't matter that takes that emotional decision away from you. So what I want to see in my science fiction And what Star Trek has done very well, especially when Gene was involved, and this is a Roddenberry podcast, so I think we can hold things to that standard, is we want to see people who do the science well. And then if
Yeah.
hilarity ensues after that, that's okay. But to see them do the science poorly, like for instance, when Spock said, "You may not trust me, but you have to trust this because it's the science." Well, it wasn't science, it was a hypothesis. It hadn't been tested, they hadn't tried to disprove it. It wasn't consistent, it wasn't repeatable. Those are the things that it takes to make real science. That's what I want to see in my science fiction.
Yeah, and I think it, especially for a character like Spock, involved in this away team, if we're gonna have these legacy characters, we need to keep true to who they are. And if nothing else, Spock is dedicated to science. We know he becomes a chief science officer for a reason. Um, but the one thing I did find it intriguing was the standoff between um the Gorn aspect of Batel and then the this non-corporeal entity possessing Gamble. And if that enmity goes back millennia, that could have been the triggering mechanism for why the Gorn evolved the way they did. And if the show is really seeding these two as like these concurrent enemies, that could lead to something interesting. But like this episode was fun, but it did seem haphazard and like not very thought out. So I don't know if I trust the show to be planting seeds for a satisfying conclusion, at least not right now, because we're halfway through the season.
I agree with you 100%. I would love to see just kind of the best and brightest.
Yeah.
Not I think I did read, I will share this. Somebody called him the young and the clueless.
Yeah.
Is how they referred to this show. And
Nice.
I'll just leave it at that.
Like if we could use real studious science to defeat the Gorn, yes, that's a Star Trek I want.
Mm. It felt like our crew, who we know to be intelligent, are making a bunch of dumb decisions for the sake of plot, and I don't care for that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, and that's why I think the weaker entries in the Alien franchise are frustrating because these brilliant scientists are putting face first into eggs.
hmm
I get it, man. John, thanks so much for calling in, my friend.
Thanks, John.
You have
Thank
you
you.
have a great
Have a
night,
good. Thank
and
you too.
we are gonna move on to our next caller. But thank you, sir. Peter Archibald, how are you, sir?
All right, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, I believe this is the first time we've had a chance to chat. Thanks for calling in, man. What's on your mind?
Yeah, first time on this, and I thought I might as well give it a go.
Outstanding.
All
That's what we
right.
like to hear.
I appreciate what y'all do at podcasting and all that good stuff. Appreciate Patreon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And where are you calling us from?
Troy, New York.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
good. So what are your thoughts on Through the Lens of Time?
I thought we had another good one here, and I did appreciate the Indiana Jones reference in the recap. That's a lot of
You
fun.
know, if Spock was
Yeah.
really interested in doing science, he could have tested his hypothesis by throwing a couple of pebbles across the
Yeah, I'd say there was dust. We could throw in some dust. There was no dust.
maybe tiptoe, maybe that. But it's all very tricky with multidimensional bridges, I suppose. And to be honest, this was an episode that when I watched it the first time, I thought the pacing was a little slow. Um, Other than that, I really thought it was one of the better episodes of Strange New Worlds, and it was sort of upon second and third watch that I started to poke holes in it. But I know you're not alone in liking this episode. Yeah, tell us why, man. No wrong answers.
No, I just thought they did a good job with the storytelling. And again, with the Indiana Jones thing, he had to take that leap first.
Mhm.
And then he saw the bridge through. It wasn't until after he looks back and throws the dust. So I think
Right.
that's what you got here. And as to him saying, hey, let's do this, he had a reason to believe it. And what was the alternative?
Starve.
Yeah, starve. So he's like, we've got nothing better to do. Let's go ahead and make this step. And she isn't blindly just going, well, let me do this. Spock believes it's going to work. So she's going to take that step. She doesn't go blindly. She goes based on his recommendation.
And having built that trust among the two of them over, their time together does have its payoffs. And that was one of them when he said, hey, you may not trust me and how I feel about Roger, because whatever. But you can trust me on this. And that was indeed true. Real shout out though to La'an, who was, right in there with her, holding hands and walking onto that bridge too. So, by the way, every step along the way, I think La'an was correct. She kept offering alternatives that would provide time and options, and a more lowercase c conservative course of action, and just sort of got steamrolled over and over again.
I mean, you know what? It's never a good idea to ignore the suggestions of your security officer, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Especially when you have one who is very like level-headed like La'an is. She's not like the stereotypical security officer who's just gonna bluster and, punch anything in her way. Although I will say her drawing that phaser super quick once Chapel said, "Oh, this statue has a life sign." She's like, "Whoa." Like, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a statue. It ain't moving, girl. But I'm glad you did that.
Because like Ken Ray would always say, if it's alive, you can kill it, right?
Fair enough. I did also like the okay, we're gonna hold hands and do this because you know what? You learn when you're a little kid, you're gonna cross the street. You gotta hold hands when you cross the street. If you're gonna step out onto a bridge that may or may not be there, hey, at least you're holding on to something. All right.
Peter, are you far from Ticonderoga, New York?
It's a good couple hours or more
Okay.
away, but it's not that far. I've been there quite a few times. They got a really good thing out there if y'all haven't seen it.
No, I'd love to. It
anybody out
is
there
it is
have-
on the list. I'm from New York, but I'm a Long Islander, so love to get out there and maybe we can meet up sometime, sir. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Just glad to be here, enjoying that genealogy show too. By
Oh
the
my
way.
gosh.
Actually, great job on that.
Thank you. Thank you
And,
so much, Peter.
Always look
Good
forward
deal.
when the next one comes out.
Oh,
And if
well,
anybody wants to watch an episode of The Orville where they make equally dumb decisions, but I do think it has a better message at the end, Shadow Realm, season 3 of The Orville, if you want to check that out. Peter, don't be a stranger. We want you back every week, man.
thanks for calling,
All
Peter.
right.
All right,
Thanks for
thank
having
you.
me. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, sir. Alan Simonus? Never heard of him.
Simonis.
I never heard of him. How?
Yes.
First time caller, long time
It's
listener.
just, yeah. Hey guys. Yeah. Ironically, yeah, because of the nature of this episode, this is my first ever call. You're just hearing it now. So
Yes, this is the effect preceding the cause. I guess.
oh boy, I hope I'm not nervous.
I love it. I love it.
Nice. What? So what are your thoughts on this one, man?
Well, that kind of leads into my thoughts on this episode is that, you know, as an episode, I think it's pretty good. I liked the tension in it, the you know, a little bit of it is idiot plotty, but you know, it has a good aesthetic to it. Um, you know, the creepy factor of Gamble is there, although it is an awful shame that really this is all we're gonna get from this character that presented himself a couple weeks ago as, oh, here's this new character that we might get to know something about. Guess not. And I think that's part of my issue overall is that while this is good in itself, like I think Brandon mentioned before, it kind of plays out weirdly in terms of the storytelling of the season. Because I feel like they are trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too, in terms of the serialization versus the standalone nature. It feels like they want to have, these serialized story arcs that are presenting themselves throughout the course of this season, but they're also trying to give it a standalone feel. And the effect is we're getting like these chunks of story in really weird places throughout the season. We have the Batel Gorn storyline, which gets completely hijacked and sidetracked so that we can have a wacky holodeck episode last week, which is fine. And we have Korby and Beto and Gamble, who get introduced in the lighthearted wedding episode that then gets followed up 3 episodes later with this episode, but we don't really see them in the middle of those stories. And so, it's things like that where it's kind of, and I think I mentioned when I called in for the zombie Klingon episode, where we have this weird thing with Ortegas where she has one particular scene at the end of episode 2, and then episode 3 shows up, and it's like she's had to deal with whatever happened at the end of episode 2, but we don't see any of that happening.
And
And it's
that was
yeah,
as this episode started. I think my note was FFS. Umberto gets an episode, and all anybody wants is an Ortegas episode. We got the other Ortegas though,
hmm
which I was very surprised at. And in
this
this
is not what
episode,
we meant
all
by
was not.
Mortegas.
This is
No.
not what we meant by an Ortegas episode, people.
When we say hashtag Mortegas, we didn't mean bring in another Ortegas. Which, I mean, he's great. Beto is freaking adorable.
Yeah,
I love him. I think he's wonderful, a wonderful character, great addition. When I said hashtag Mortegas, I don't know anything about Ortegas other than she's a pilot.
yeah.
And she's
That's it.
Por
three
qué no
seasons
los
in.
dos viajo estrellas?
Well, hey man, thanks for
Claro
calling
que
in.
sí.
Any final thoughts, Alan, before we
Well,
move on?
Captain Mike, I just wanted to say that as as much as I appreciated all the work that was done for the people who were in Las Vegas, I also wanted to shout out our Patreon and our Discord group for all the work that was done for those of us who were stuck at home this past weekend and who got to have a little taste of that party vicariously, uh, and the camaraderie of the Vegas Connect convention with the people who were sadly unable to attend. We had a great slew of conversations and
And to be fair,
things.
the topics of conversations, the panels that Norman set up were more
Hmm.
interesting than anything I saw, I think, at hashtag STLV. And the topics are they're secret, folks. You got to join. You got to go to patreon.com/missionlog if you want to find out what those were. But really interesting topics of discussion.
Absolutely. So yeah, big shout out to Norman for sort of spearheading that part of our weekend, and well, hopefully next year we'll all be in the same place for real, for real. But we'll see how that goes. But until next time, we'll catch you later. Assimilator.
Simulator, Alan. Thanks for calling, bro.
So long, Alan. Laura, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you
Good.
guys?
Hi, Laura.
I'm doing well. Ashley's always doing well. I believe this is the first time you and I spoke, as I don't sit here a
Yeah,
lot,
I've
as I'm sitting in
heard
for
the name
John.
Captain Mike before, but yes, this is the first I'm seeing of you.
Yeah, I
Uh,
co-host Mission Log the Orville with Jessica Lynn Verdi. So
okay, I've watched the Orville, but I haven't got to any of those. I will get to
oh
them.
man. You
In
just
due time.
you just got to peel back the onion with us. It is a wild ride. So
I finished catching up with the regular mission log, and I'm working on finishing catching up with this mission log live, and then I'll
when
get to
did
all the others.
when did you start listening to Mission Log?
Uh, I've been thinking about that. I would say 18 or 19, 2018 or
Okay. So
2019.
about 5 or 6 years to get caught up on
It might have
12,
even been 2020
13
because
years. Yeah.
whenever Star Trek was about to leave Netflix, that's when I finally watched the original series all the way through for the first time
Gotcha.
because I
Nice.
grew up on TNG. And then from there I was finding podcasts because I was already in the Harry Potter world and listening to Harry Potter podcasts, and I was like, surely there are Star Trek podcasts out there. I just have to find them.
Just a couple, and of course you got
There's only a
this
few.
only a few, but this network is the gold standard, I think, because this
Oh yeah.
comes, right from Rod, right from Gene, uh, right from Rod, who came right from Gene, and he's got I think the right people in the right places, and the shows that cover before Star Trek, shows that cover Star Trek adjacent with people that worked for Gene and went out and did other things like the Orville. What are your thoughts on Through the Lens of Time?
Well, one little minor thing that I thought was weird, and I don't know if anyone's mentioned it yet. Paramount Plus had the title of the show where lens is spelled incorrectly.
Hmm. Okay. How do they
Yeah.
spell
Like
it?
there's an E on the end, and I was like, "Is that a word?" And I looked it up, and
Lens.
it's common misspelling for lens. So I was like, "Okay, it's supposed to be lens, but why'd they put an E on it? I don't know."
Some intern made a typo and nobody's bothered to fix it.
Anyways, but no, I liked the episode. I liked the aspect of these ancient civilizations somehow being rediscovered or coming back, and the Gorn and whoever these prisoners are interacting. I find that very cool and interesting. I feel like there's plenty of room to follow um that plot line, I guess. But watching the episode, like how it started with Ensign Gamble personal log, I was along the ride for him because I've been waiting for him to have more of a part, and so it was an emotional roller coaster for me.
The
And
most upsetting thing for me about this episode is how badly everybody failed this kid.
yeah,
And yes, he's an officer, and yes, he probably had some training in Starfleet Academy on away missions, and yes, he probably, has had some conversations with the more senior people. But to be thrown in last minute, really just in time for the mission brief to go down there, to not have the more senior people watching his back the way they should have. To let this person be in the position that they were in that cost him his life, and then for Captain Pike to come out and tell Dr. Mabanga that sorry, we can't save them all, just that stoically, that flatly, I thought was horrible, absolutely horrible. And you look at the cage and how upset Pike was when he lost his yeoman and two other crewmen, right? Not, he didn't come back and say, well, you can't save them all. He came back and he thought about quitting. That's how upset he was about that loss. And all the Kirk haters from TOS, look at any episode where a crewman was lost. He is upset about it, that he every single time. So this kind of disregard for what happened to this young man was, I mean, I thought just incongruent with the rest of the series.
yeah. Well, and then part of me was thinking, okay, he's not really dead. He is in there. And
I
Benga
thought you were going to
thinks that
say he's
he's in there.
I thought you were going to say he's not really dead as long as we remember him. Um,
Well, then when Pelia, when Scotty teleported the creature into the buffer and Pelia shot the back of his head, I was like, okay, he's dead. That's great.
yeah,
Um,
and talk
so
about
let
bedside manner. Like even McCoy never said like, "You're brain dead, Jim," or He's brain dead, Jim. That never happened. He tells this guy he's brain dead when he's sitting on the table. That can't be very reassuring.
Yeah, but then when I watched it for the third time today, much more calm, much more at balance and ease. I noticed from the second he picked up that ball and it exploded in his face that, oh, he was dead from that point. Because, and then also, I guess if you want to think about the minutia of this, the getting out of that place, it was only because he was already dead that he was able to get out before all of the security measures were enacted. And then that one alien was killed trying to get out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was very curious about the mechanics of that also, because
Yeah.
did they just make the call and he got beamed from there? They just showed him materialize in sickbay. I don't
Yeah.
think they showed where he dematerialized from. Ashley?
No, they didn't. And they make a note that La'an and Chapel were the ones who got Gamble out of the building,
Okay.
and then they came in. So that it wasn't that he was dead, it was that
He was
Chapel was,
escorted.
yeah, he was
Okay.
escorted specifically by Chapel.
Okay.
So because she did the finger prick to let them all in
Yeah.
and out.
Okay.
So yeah.
But
I'm not
yeah,
sure
and
what
then go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say I'm not sure we can say that on this program, but go ahead.
Well, and then also when all of the extras people were then dropped off and it was the final six, I was like, oh, okay, so this is a three-way date. Okay. Because you got Korby and Chapel, and then and I was like, I guess this is why La'an and Spock have been doing all of their dancing and getting close with each other so that they could have this triangular element in this episode. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need that unless it develops into something more. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, there's, I mean, there's folks that have been critical of Strange New Worlds that it's, at times nothing more than like a workplace, drama. Um, and at least, this one had the added benefit of at least, getting out of the workplace and doing some other things. But I can't thank you enough for calling in. We hope to see a lot more now that you're caught up. And any final thoughts before we go over to our last caller?
Mm, justice for Gamble. He may come back just as like the body of this creature whenever it comes out of the buffer, but I just feel so bad for this young, good-looking black guy that had to fall on the sword. So
Hashtag
Yeah.
justice for Gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there were a lot of failures of leadership in this episode, sadly. Laura, thank you very much. And now to round out the night, longtime caller, Cherie. How are you?
Hi, Cherie.
Hi. Yeah, so I I also do not like this episode,
Oh
as I've said in the
no.
chat. Um, Now some of that is just like a personal preference. I don't like horror, for the most part. There are some horror things that I do like. This was not one of them. Uh, and part of it is I feel like it didn't exemplify any of the things that I go to Star Trek for. Um, so uh First of all, Gamble was fridged, basically. Basically to move the plot along.
Mhm.
The He became a plot point, not a character. And I thought he was too good a character, and I always hate that trope in any story. So I don't like the fact that they did that. Um and then on top of that, they did it to a young black man. I don't like to see a young black man brutally murdered.
I didn't bring that up, but that is just such a return to like really, really old, Hollywood storytelling where, as soon as you saw the young black man, they weren't going to make it out alive.
And here's the
And
thing,
that's
I feel
terrible.
like some people are like going to give the argument of like, what we can't like tell stories or anything. And it's like, look, you can tell a story like that as soon as we have enough black people on TV, just as many black characters on your show as they had female captains in Lower Decks. We were able to have a stupid female captain, Captain Dayton in Lower Decks, super stupid, because practically all of the captains in Lower Decks were females. So
Yeah.
we had plenty of competent ones, and then Captain Dayton was able to be a complete and utter failure because there were plenty of other competent captains to compare her to. So when you have as many black characters, if you have female captains on lower decks, then you can do this kind of story if you want. But they're not there yet.
Agreed.
So,
I agree.
yeah.
Well said. Well said, Sherry.
That's why it bothered me. And I'm like, I bet the actor might have, I'm sure actors are always happy to have work. And, the actor might have found the role to be super fun. I can see as an actor where it'd be like super fun to play like a possession type of thing and stuff like that. And I would never have liked this episode regardless. But if they really wanted to do this story, I think it would have been more earned if they had done it at the very end and Gamble had been in most if they moved Chapel's return towards the end of the season and done that whole like 3 months where she's just gone and Gamble gets to like do his thing and we get to know him. And then it would have been even like more of honestly a gut punch, but also he would have been a full person instead of just a plot point.
Right. It was kind of it almost reeked of, who's been on the ship for a little while, there to replace Chapel while she was gone. She came back, and okay, who's expendable? Was sort of the kind of the subtext, I guess. Yeah. Any final thoughts on that before we wrap it up for the night?
I will throw out there, I also didn't like the sort of like they're like, this is just pure evil thing, because I feel Star Trek is about diplomacy and scientific curiosity. Let's not just say, oh, it's pure evil, enough said.
Right.
Let's like look at the like, is this something we can talk to? Can we communicate with it? Like the original Gorn episode where Kirk is actually like, no, I'm not going to kill you. Like,
yeah. So I 100% get that. And what turned me off on a prior episode of Strange New Worlds was when Pike was talking to the Admiral, Robert April, and said, they're evil. I think he even called them animals.
Call them a monster.
Monsters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes a
and-
monster is just a monster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and April was like, "No, we've got to, move this relationship along and not think of anybody that way." So maybe that gave Pike a change of heart, because in this one he was like, "Well, I don't really believe in evil." The 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, said he doesn't think the universe is evil. He thinks the universe is hungry, and evil depends on which end of the cutlery you happen to be on. Now with these guys, they're just flat out evil,
And
according to...
That would be the only saving grace, though, because when Battelle saw the other guy, she was fighting him, and that might be their way of being like, well, maybe the Gorn aren't monsters. Maybe there's like a reason they're so aggressive. That could
They
be
were abused
interesting.
children.
Yeah. But I think that just moves the pure evil to something else. Like, we're not saying like maybe we should try to like communicate and like understand things. It's just like, no, we thought this was evil. No, actually, this is evil. It's like, okay, cool.
Well, I wondered how seriously we should take that statement after, Pelia is giving this big dramatic monologue, and then she asks Beto if she needs to do another take for the
Well,
camera.
that was my other issue with it,
Yeah.
because we don't even know, though. Like,
Right.
it could have been met. I mean, it seems from the tone of the rest of the episode, and that threw me off too, because like from the tone of the rest of the episode, you would see that was like, that did seem to be how she felt.
Right.
Especially based on the tone of the actual episode.
You think she might have just been, stealing some scenery and hamming it up a little bit?
But also, like, she didn't like, there wasn't anything to like deny that, like, no, actually, we don't think this is pure evil. And there wasn't anything in the episode to like show after that, just that like little like jokey joke, which I don't, it just.
And I gotta say it, we didn't really touch on it tonight, but if whatever was possessing Gamble was able to know every single thing about M'Benga and his daughter and his insecurities about her, seemed like a little mind reading. But he's got to ask for command codes. Like, seriously, command codes?
Yeah. Also, when Pelia shot him, he's just a flesh puppet anyway. Why did that matter? He's basically a zombie. I don't understand why that mattered that he got shot.
Well, Scotty quick on the orb. that was the key to that.
Maybe, yeah.
Do we
Maybe it's
know
like a
why they're
Pokemon, an
yeah.
evil
Yeah,
Pokemon.
yeah.
That was it.
That was a
But Sherry,
ghost Pokemon.
Sherry, thanks so much for calling. Thanks so much for your support here, week in and week out, man. We love hearing from you. We love your insights.
Thanks.
Ashley, what do you got? Any final thoughts? Anything you want to end the program with?
Hashtag Mortegas.
Yeah, and we don't mean Umberto.
No,
Although
and
he's fine.
he's
He's fine.
adorable.
Yeah.
Love him. Sweet. Seems like a sweet kid. I want to know more about my girl Erica. Please and thank
Yeah,
you.
100%. The only thing I would say is, we had a little um, Lewis Carroll throwback from Once Upon a Planet, Curiouser and Curiouser. I liked that they did that. But at one point in my career, I had a chief pilot that signed off every memo with take care of your passengers, take care of your crew, and take care of yourself. Right? Take care of your people first. Leaders eat last. Leaders look out for the people that are in their charge, and they protect them as the most important thing, more important than the mission, more important than finding. Look, that ancient civilization wasn't going anywhere. They could have backed out, reassessed, and come back, I don't know, at any time, and things would have been the same. So that's kind of what I take away from this episode. Ashley, we got next week. We're talking about, I think, the Salot who ate its tail. Is that the correct episode
Yes,
title?
that is correct. The Salat who ate its tail.
All right. Well, we will look forward to the coverage of that. I believe I'll be back with Heather Ray Barker to cover that one. In the meantime, thank you, Ashley, and thank you for all the guests we called in. Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by the illimitable Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you would like to support Mission Log Live directly, give us a look at patreon.com/missionlog. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later. We look forward to seeing you all next week.